Good afternoon, students. Can you hear my voice? Can you hear my voice? Yes? Okay. Okay. Right, now I'm going to share the screen. So before sharing the screen, let me know what we have discussed yesterday. Let me record this. Can you see the screen? Yes. Yesterday we have discussed about what is a class, what is a this keyword, what is a friend, and what is static and constructors. What is static and constructors? Okay. Yes, Sohan. What about remaining people? I got few responses here. I got only few responses over here. Yes, you are able to listen. Okay. So what we'll discuss today is I'll start from the copy constructor. Okay. I'm going to start from the copy constructor. So before going to that, let me tell you what is a constructor once again. Then we'll go back. Okay. Then we will go back to uh, the copy constructor, right? So default constructor is nothing but it is a constructor. Okay, default constructor is nothing but a constructor which is which is a special function which is used to initialize the members of a class and used to initialize members of a class which has the same name as a class name, right? It is going to it will not have any return type, not even void, right? And the constructor is called at the time of creation and object itself. You need not write any specific instruction for the constructor to you need not write any separate instruction for calling the constructor, right? I hope you are able to follow. Okay, you are able to follow. Yes, are you listening? Are you listening? 1 second. We have different types of constructors. Yes, so how many types of constructors we have? How many types of constructors we have? How many types of constructors we have? What are they? What are those? What's the first one? Right. We have different type of constructors. Okay, we are having three types of constructors. What first one is default constructor, second one is parameterized constructor, and third one is copy constructor. So what is default constructor? What is default constructor? What is default constructor? Yes, what is default constructor? Right, it's a constructor with no parameters and the constructor without parameters, right? So parameterized constructor means it will have the parameters. Okay, parameterized constructor means it will have the parameters. And so how are these constructors called? How are these constructors called? How are these constructors called? Right, how are these constructors called? Constructors are called at the time of creating an object itself, right? So whenever you are writing a statement for creation of an object, whenever you are writing the statement for creation of an object here, it will call even constructor here. In case if you are passing parameters, it will pass the parameterized constructor. If no parameters, it will call a default constructor. And the third type of constructor we are having is a copy constructor. Copy constructor will have a parameter of the same name. That means it has a reference of the same class itself as a parameter. Once again I am telling, copy constructor has a parameter which is a reference to the same class itself. That is nothing but a copy constructor here, right? So it is a member function which initializes an object, another object of the same class. Now I am going to show you few examples on this. I am going to show you few examples on this. Actually, I am trying to put the chat box here. Okay, I'll show the examples to you of a constructor. Right. See, I think I have to, yesterday I've discussed this example to you, right? So we are having a class. What's the name of a class we have? A, right? So in this A constructor, I'm initializing a variable x, member variable x, which is equal to 0. Then A int A I'm taking. So we are initializing this parameterized constructor, right? Parameterized constructor. Okay. Have you seen this? So when I write a statement like a space a1 of 20, that means when I am creating an object to class A, right, to which I am passing a parameter of type integer. So what happens whenever this statement is called here? This is going to call, okay, this is going to call the parameterized constructor, right, and it initializes value 20. So where is our parameterized constructor here? The value 20 will be assigned to x. Okay, value 20 will be assigned to x, right? So what is there in x now? 20, right? Now when I say, when I create another object a2 of a1, that means here it is calling another object. Okay, it is calling another object of the same class. That is what we call here as a2 of a1. Here it calls a copy constructor. Okay, we are calling the copy constructor here. Then when I say a2 dot x, so what value we have in x again? Once again it is 20. Then a3 is equal to a1 I am saying. So this a1 is already initialized with value 20. So when I say a3 is equal to a1, right, when I call here print the value of a3 dot x, it again prints the value of x as 20. Yes. So once again we have a4 that is again initialized with A1. So what value it is going to print? C. Compiling. Then run. So what is the value it is printing on all the things here? 20, 20, 20, right? So that the value, that means internally it is calling a copy constructor, right? It's calling the copy constructor. This copy constructor A2 of A1 and A3 is equal to A1 and A4 is equal to A1. As this A1 is initialized with some value, right? As it, we are calling the parameterized constructor, the same we are assigning, right? Whenever you write object A2 of A1, it is again calling an object according to the definition, right? What was the definition we had here? It is a member function which initializes an object, okay, which initializes an object using another object of the same class. Yes or no? As we have created passing an object of the same class, it calls the copy constructor. Are you following? Are you following? Right. So I'm initializing A3 is equal to A1, A4 is equal to A1. So here it is calling the copy constructor. Yes. Yes. Have you followed this? Have you followed everyone? Okay. Then we have one more example for the copy constructor. Okay. I have AB. These two are members of a class and I'm declaring a pointer. So we'll come to know what is the use of pointer. Okay. Pointer in a demo class, that is in the constructor demo, that is default constructor, I am creating a reference, that is new variable P, assigning memory to that. Okay. Automatic, right? Then we have three variables initialized by using a set method. Okay, A is equal to X, B is equal to Y, and P is star P is equal to Z. Why we have written star P, we'll see. Okay. To initialize, as you have created the pointer to an integer variable, I want to initialize that with some X. Okay, that with Z. Then we are writing value of A is A, value of B is B, and value of P is star P we are printing. This is in show data. In show data, what we are doing, we are just printing the values of the members of a class. Then when I say d1 dot set data, okay, d1 dot set data, what happens here? It is going to call 4, 5, 7 will be assigned to X, Y, and Z. So what is there in Z here? We have, what is there in Z? We are having 7. We are having 7 here. That is created with this P is equal to new int. Okay. So when I compile it here, okay, so what values are printed here with the same thing? We are once again we are calling the copy constructor with by assigning, initializing the memory with the default constructor. In the previous example, I was showing you the copy constructor which initializes with the same class object. Okay, now here as the copy constructor, we are allotting some memory. Internally it is calling the default constructor where it assigns some memory to that, which in turn it calls the copy constructor here. When I say demo d2 is equal to d1, okay, with this d1 dot set data, okay, what is happening here? It is setting the value. When I say demo d2 is equal to d1, okay, demo d2 is equal to d1 means what happens here? It is going to call this d2 is going to call the default constructor, and in turn it assigns here also in d1 also it calls the default constructor. Then we are assigning those values to the default constructor. Okay. Then coming to the third one, Third example for the copy constructor, see a, b and p. Okay, we have a, b and p, then a default constructor, some normal member function. Then see, we are passing one more definition we can say for a copy constructor, which takes an object of the same class itself, that is a reference of the same class we are passing as an object. So on this reference we are going to call the members of a. On this reference we are going to call the members of a. D dot a that we are assigning to a, and d dot b we are assigning to b. And when I say p is equal to new int, it is going to create a memory. Okay, create the memory for p, and for assigning the value, we are using it. Okay, same code doesn't change here, it is same like that previous one. Okay, so what happened here? Again the same default copy constructor called here. Where is that copy constructor? Here, demo d. Okay, this is our copy constructor. So when I say this statement, demo d2 is equal to d1, okay, it is going to call the copy constructor. Call the copy constructor, and it initializes the values what we have set for d1. With this statement it calls a copy constructor, right? Then this d1 is initialized by some values 4, 5, 7. The same values will be assigned to d2 also. d2 dot show data. Is this clear to everyone? Is this clear? Are you able to follow everyone? Are you able to follow everyone? Yes. Dikshit, Tarun. Are you able to follow? Yes. Followed or not? Yes. Okay. Right. Then we see we have two types of see, whenever we call a constructor, okay, whenever we are calling a copy constructor or constructor here, we have different types of copying here. Like once you are copying the content of one object to another object, whether it is modifying in two objects or it is only making changes into one object, right? See, for example, if I have any object, okay, for example, if I have any object, okay, on a specific object, if it is making, okay, if it is making any changes, see, now here I have an object, okay, I'm having an object. This object I'm naming as a, okay, this object I'm naming as a. If I am making any changes to this object, okay, it should it should change in the original object as well as in the new object. Okay, I have another object b, okay, I'm having another object b. If I'm making any change to this b object, that should reflect even in a object. That means both the objects should have changed. Okay, that is nothing but deep copying. Shallow copying is nothing but, we have two types of copying here. One is deep and shallow. If any change happens to the new object, that also affects in the old one. That is deep. Shallow is nothing but where you will have, even though you make any changes in the new object, Okay, that is new object I'm taking here as B. If you're making any change in this object B, that will not affect in A, right? Is this clear? Two types of copying. Now that we will see here. Okay, so this deep copying is possible only when you are using the copy constructor. Okay, default constructor, copy constructor, and and what is the other constructor we have? Parameterized constructor. So when you wanted to use this shallow or deep concept here, you should have copy constructor used in your program. Like the concept of copy constructor should be there. Okay. Have you followed this, everyone? Have you followed this, everyone? Syllabus is only 2 units for your mid examination. Coming to the syllabus, you have only 2 units. See, whoever is listening to the revision classes, they can score more marks. If you are skipping, you will get less marks automatically. You can understand after you write the examination. Okay, we'll share. I think we have already shared the notes. Once again, we will do that. Right, students? So we see now. First, we'll see shallow copy. See, copy constructor. I have a parameterized constructor, right? So when I say here p of 20 comma 30 in this statement, point p1 of 20 comma 30, when I say this, what is happening? We are initializing x and y values, right? So for retrieving that values, I'm writing like p1 dot get x, p1 dot get y, right? So here it is calling parameterized constructor. With this statement p1 of 20 comma 30, so it internally calls the parameterized constructor. So where is that parameterized constructor we have written? So this is our parameterized constructor. So it will assign 20 to x and 30 to y. Okay, we are going to assign 20 to x and 30 to y. That will be assigned for member variables x and y here. Then when I say p1 dot get x and p1 dot get y, is going to give us the values of x and y on object p1. On object p1. Then when I say point p2 of p1, okay, point p2 of p1. So what happens here? It is again calling a copy constructor. Okay, it will print the value. Okay, now see, I will show you. Okay, so we got 2030 and 2030 as we are doing this, right? Now coming to the next one here. Same program, slight change in this one. Okay, so when I make changes to this object, here it is affecting in a other object also. Okay, when I'm making change, right, when I'm modifying like point p2 is equal to p1, so the same value will be copied into the second one. Right, now see, uh, see, this is our parameterized constructor. So I have included parameterized constructor. We have to include parameterized constructor for a whether it is a shallow copy or deep copy. We need to include it, right? when we are displaying a value of x, y and t. Clear everyone? Is this clear to you everyone? Yes? Have you followed everyone? Have you followed everyone? Okay. Harshita is present here. Harshita. Right. Then we have destructors. Okay, so what is a constructor? You know that whenever an object, right, whenever you are creating an object, that means it automatically initializes memory and it calls an object, right? So coming to the destructor here, it is a member function which deletes an object. That means this destructor is called, right, destructor is called automatically whenever an object is out of scope. Uh, that is whenever you have the function ends or when the program ends or a block of local variable ends, like the scope of that particular variable ends, or when we are calling the delete operator also, the destructor is called. So these are the different uh, scenarios where the destructor is called here. Automatically the function call gets closed, right? At the end of the function, it is going to call the destructor. Destructor is called automatically whenever the function ends and the program ends or the block ends or when you are calling the delete operator. Right? So see how does it work, how we are going to write a destructor. Destructor once again has the same name as a class name but which is followed by a tilde symbol. Right? Destructor has the same name as a class name but which is followed by a tilde symbol here. So see the tilde symbol will be like this. Okay, this is our tilde symbol. Okay, again destructors don't have any arguments and not even return type. So see for example, class string private cast. Are you following everyone? Are you following? You're sleeping. Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? I can't. No sleeping. Okay, you are listening to the class. Good students. Okay, you are following, right? Yes. So are you following? Now response to this. Are you following? Okay. Is this clear till now? Whatever we have discussed. Right. Shivani. Shivani. A Shivani KMIT. Oh, what? Yes, ma'am. Siddiqui. Okay, you're following. Naveen. Naveen. B Naveen KMIT. Yes, so you're following. So we continue with the destructor. See, the class I'm taking as string is a class name private char star s in size. Right, I'm writing a constructor, right, and one destructor. So how I have written the destructor? I think you can see the destructor here. String, okay, tilde symbol followed by the class name. Tilde symbol followed by the class name. Okay, so when I use the tilde symbol, nothing but I'm including a destructor in my program. In this destructor, the code I'm going to include will be delete s array. The code I'm going to include will be delete, that means array of objects if you are created, that will be deleted with the help of this delete s array. So how do you write the member functions outside a class? How do we write the member functions outside a class? How do we write the member functions outside a class? We are going to write the member function outside a class by following the syntax called return type, class name, scope resolution, and member function name. In case if you have any parameters, we are going to include those. We are going to include those parameters, right? Yes. So as this is a constructor, we don't have any return type. So I'm not writing any return type here. Then I have written the class name followed by scope resolution, member function name. So here in this, what I am doing is I am calculating the string length. So whatever characters I have, whatever string I'm passing here, that I'm trying to get the size, length of that size. Then I'm copying that to yes. Okay, whatever I have in C, I'm copying that to yes, right? Then we have a destructor. Okay, destructor is written here, string. Before that string, that is a class name, we have written tilde. Now same thing written for this also, no return type, string, scope resolution string. And in this we know that whenever destructor is called, it is going to remove objects from the memory. Okay, remove objects from the memory. So we are calling delete array. So now can you tell me what happens if the destructor is not called? Can you tell me if the destructor is not called by the compiler, what happens? Can you tell me what happens if the destructor is called? Right, it is called as memory wastage. As even though you are using uh, even though you are using those objects or not, okay, that objects will be present in the memory. So what happens here? Like for example, if you are creating some 10 objects in for your program, so those 10 objects will be stored in a stack of memory, right? So what happens again? Again the memory gets wasted there, right? So that we call as memory leak. Okay, to avoid memory leak, we are going to call a destructor. Right, we should write destructor in order to avoid memory leak problem, right? So for every program, how many constructors can we have? For every program, how many constructors can we have? Is there any limit on the constructors of what we are including? Is there any limit on the constructors what we are including? Do we have any limit on the constructors? No. Uh, but but we have limit on a destructors. How many number of destructors we can include for a program? Only one. Okay, we can include only one destructor for a program, right? Is this clear? Then we'll start with the dynamic creation of destruction of objects. Till here, have you followed everyone? Till here, have you followed everyone? Till here, have you followed everyone? Okay, you have followed everyone. Right, the next one is dynamic creation and destruction of objects. Right, dynamic creation and destruction of objects, right? So what do you mean by dynamic? What do you mean by dynamic? What do you mean by dynamic? It is runtime. Okay. So at the time of running a program, right? At the time of running a program, if we wanted to create an object or delete an object, we call that name itself as dynamic creation and destruction of objects, right? So so for creating the object at runtime, we use an operator called as new operator. For destruction of an object, we use an operator called as delete operator. Okay, for destruction we are using an operator called as delete. For creation of an object we are using new operator. Okay, we are using new, right? Now we'll see that. The syntax of this will be ptr is equal to new class name. ptr is equal to new class name, right? ptr, the syntax ptr is equal to new class name. Then we have an example, like I have a class. In the class, right after main function, I'm just writing demo star d is equal to new demo, right? So what happens here? This new up, right? Whatever new we are using, that is used to create an object, as well as I have written here star d, right? Demo d, star d is equal to new demo I have written. So what this new demo will return is, it is going to return a pointer to the demo class. Okay, it is going to return a pointer to the demo here, right? So it is stored, whatever pointer you have, that will be stored in d. It is stored in d. Okay, so now can you tell me, this d is a pointer, this d should be the pointer to the same class, or it can point to any class pointer? Once again I'm telling, new demo I have taken. Okay, new demo I have written here. Instead of this, new sample I write. Okay, demo star d is equal to new sample. So the question I'm asking here is, the pointer, variable pointer which we have created, should be of the same class, that is towards the LHS side and towards the RHS side should be the same. I'm asking, it should be the same or different? Upcasting and downcasting, we have one thing here, it should be of the same class. Good, very good, right? Then so for deleting, we have a operator called as delete operator, and the syntax is delete ptr. We have an example called delete d. Okay, we have an example called delete d. Help of this delete d is going to delete the object which is pointed by d, right? So not only it is deleting the pointer which is pointed, it also calls the destructor of the class, right? When I am discussing destructor, I told you that it internally calls a delete operator. In one example we have seen, right? Delete the array we have written in that example, right? Same thing here. Whenever you call delete d, it is going to destroy the object which is pointed to here, as well as it invokes the destructor. How it performs? By invoking the destructor of a class. Okay, we have a simple example here. Class data, int xy data, we are having x is equal to 10, y is equal to 50, some value. Then destructor we have created, then displaying the value. See, in main function, okay, in main function I have data star d. Okay, I have data star d. So what is happening in this here when I write data star d? it is a declaration of a pointer object. Okay, then I say here d is equal to new data, d arrow data. See, as this star d is a pointer, for accessing the members of a class we need to use arrow operator. For accessing the members of a class we need to use arrow operator. Okay, we need to use arrow operator. Then I say delete d. Okay, this is also going to delete an object which is pointed here, but it deletes dynamically. The statement itself is going to delete. That means it is going to delete this d, whatever we have created dynamically. Followed, followed. I'm explaining once again. This star d. Okay, I have created a pointer. Okay, a pointer. I have written like demo star d. This is a pointer object which is created for demo class. Okay, then I say d is equal to, okay, then I say d is equal to new. Okay, what we are saying, demo d is equal to new demo. Okay, so whatever the class name we are having, new demo, right? So what happens here, we are creating a pointer variable. After creating that we are making it to point to this new demo. Okay, we are making that to point to new demo. And in case if you wanted to access any members of the class, we were using arrow operator for that. Okay, we are using arrow operator like this, d arrow, it should be small d, d arrow. In case if I have a method like show, I'll be writing show here. Okay, then when I say delete d, okay, when I say delete d, when I'm saying delete d, what happens here, it is going to delete, okay, it is going to delete the object which is pointed here by demo, right? Have you followed everyone? Have you followed? Okay, it should be same class. Vinay, have you followed? Ashdeep Singh, Ashdeep Singh, no reply from few people. He's not listening. He's just logged in and he's doing his task, I think. Singh, Ashdeep Singh. Are you listening? Okay, I got reply from you. Thank you. Sahitya, Akshat Hirani. Akshat Hirani, are you listening? Yes. Are you listening? Okay. No reply. Shivani. Shivani. Yes, you are able to follow. Okay. I got reply from Shivani. But no reply from this Akshat. Akshat. Sahitya is also okay. You are for listening. Irani is also listening. Okay, I got reply. Thank you for your reply. See, uh, you give reply. Otherwise, uh, otherwise, I cannot expect something from you people. Like you are giving messages late. Okay, if you are not giving a proper reply, even I will also go to in sleep mode. In yesterday's class itself, I told you, because this is actually afternoon classes. So I want reply from you people. Okay, right? Have you? I expect you have followed this new and delete. Okay, I hope you have followed new and delete. Everyone followed it. Yes. Yes. Okay. I want reply very fast from you people. Sagar, Aditya Sagar, Janavi Satya. No reply at all from you people. Okay. The next we'll start with the next topic. Data abstraction, right? So can you tell me what is data abstraction? Anybody? Next we have data abstraction. Okay. So you have to tell me what is data abstraction. What is data abstraction? Hiding unnecessary data. Okay, good. Good Arvind, Balaji, right? Good. Pranav also is giving reply. Good. I got reply. Anisha. I want reply from Anisha. I want reply from Anisha. Okay. So hiding unnecessary details is nothing but a data is nothing but abstraction, right? Okay. So so see when I ask you people, okay, when I ask you people, in our example, generally we will be taking example of car, okay, person driving a car, right? So whenever we consider about a car here, most of the time we will think of what is the company of the car, what is the price of the car, what is the color of the car, irrespective, okay, which is visible to us, that only we will concentrate here, irrespective of internal operation. Right? For example, what is the type of engine used, what is the type of steering used inside that, we will not consider there. Okay, we only focus on important thing, that is nothing but abstraction, like how internal parts are hidden by the covering of a car here, like metal sheet, that is nothing but data abstraction. Whatever is required, that we are highlighting, that means light is required, so light is highlighted, right? It is kept out. So engine is not required, not required to highlight it, so it is kept inside. So abstraction is nothing but hiding unnecessary data from the user, right? Hiding irrelevant data or hiding unnecessary data from the user, that is nothing but a data abstraction. Okay, it's nothing but a data abstraction. Can anybody give me an example of data abstraction? An example of data abstraction. I want an example of data abstraction. Example of data abstraction. I want an example of data abstraction. Storing of data in main memory, okay. Still, still in most of our examples, we were writing some statements like power function, okay, header files, okay, good. Still, mathematical functions, right? Or whatever mathematical functions we are writing, we will not consider about what is internal code written there. We will directly use, like if you want to use any square function, we write sqrt. If you wanted to use any power function, we are going to use power. right? So header files and predefined member functions or methods comes under abstraction, and even private members allow us the concept of abstraction. Yes, still any other examples we have? Real life example is a man driving a car. Still any more examples? I'm expecting more examples from you people. Any other examples? Data type. Can we have an example of data type? Yes, Balaji. No reply. Okay. Any other examples? Right. Data types we have abstraction. Right. Even we can use what we can use for the data type abstraction. Abstraction. Okay. Good. You have given me good examples here. Using private members, car example, as well as header files, and okay, these are the few examples of abstract data types here, right? So what are the advantages of using this abstraction? What is the advantage of using abstraction? Okay, security and more. And what more? Advantages of abstraction. Right, it makes simple to understand. Okay, it reduces complexity. Still, somebody has given me an example. Arvind is telling operating mobile phone is also an example for abstraction. Right? Internal operation code we were not bothered, but we directly use the mobile phone. See, any gadget, it can be automobiles or it can be electronics, right? All this comes under an example for abstraction itself. Everything, right. That's what I said. Riding a bike, all those things. Okay. Tell me the advantages of abstraction. First thing, it increases security. Okay. First thing is it increases security for us. Then whatever code, every time if you are including the complete thing, it will become like clumsy. Like for example, if I wanted to describe about a car itself, see, instead of saying few things which are important, if I say everything related to car, it has four wheels, and the color of the wheel is black, and the engine is steering, power steering, everything. If I tell regarding the car here, it becomes like complex, right? It will be like complex, like clumsy. So to avoid that, what happens here? We are using which is necessary. So what is the advantage here? Reduces the complexity and makes simple, and it avoids same thing repeatedly written. That is redundancy is avoided there. Security is increased, right? Followed everyone. What is abstraction? What are the advantages of abstraction? Everybody, I hope followed. Or again, I need to call one by one. Are you following? Not? Are you listening or not? Are you sleeping or not? Right? Have you followed everyone? Yes. Okay. If I'm not getting reply means I'm going to pick students and I want reply from them. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ma, for your reply. Right, then next we'll start next topic of Unit 2, ADT, Abstract Data Type. Okay. ADT is nothing but Abstract Data Type. So what is this ADT? I don't want abbreviation. Right. ADT is a type for objects whose behavior is defined by. If I ask you to write a program for linked list, or right, if I ask you to write a program for linked list or stack, okay, so what you have to do first is you have to create. First thing is you need to create an node. Okay, after creating a node, you have to add more nodes into that. Okay, then after adding, in case if I want to delete, then I have to write the code for delete. In case if I want to search, also I have to write individual code for sorry, individual code for each and every operation, right? So instead of that, okay, instead of that, we will have already written method member functions. Okay, we will have already written member functions. We are going to just use them. Okay, so that is what we say here. We have like that we are having list ADT, that is linked list, stack, queue. See, if you wanted to write a code for this linked list here, it is becoming a big code. It will be a big code for you to write it here. Yes or no? So instead of that, we use a single statement to create a list. Okay. After creating a list here, we have methods called as get method, which is going to return an element from the list at a given position. Insert means it is going to insert at any position. Remove means it is going to remove the first occurrence of an element. Remove at means it is going to remove from a specified location. You want to replace one element, right? Then we are going to replace. Want to check whether the whether it is full or not. So we have a method called as is full. So like this, instead of writing the complete code for the list here, we are using the operations which are already created. Okay, which are already created here. Are you following? I hope you are able to follow. Get, insert, remove, these are the defined functions. We are just using those operations in our list programs here. Okay, so if you don't want to use it, then we have to include the code for even creation of a list. Then how do you retrieve the list here, and how do you traverse the list, and how do you search for a list, and how do you print the elements in a list? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? No reply. Again, I need to pick the students who are I want reply from them. Yes, yes. Okay, okay. I won't pick. I got replies. Right. The next ADT we have is, this is related to list ADT. Then coming to stack. Okay, again stack contains elements. So what is that operation we use? All operations take place from single end, that is top of the stack. And the principle we follow in stack is, what's the principle we follow? First in, first out, or last in, first out? What's the principle we follow in stack? Last in? First out. Okay. First in, first out. Somebody is saying first in, first out. First out, last in. Somebody is saying. Luck. What is this luck, Srivani? Okay. Last in, first out. Okay, it is last in. Sorry. Last in, first out. Then we have different operations like. So before going to that, so what are the operations we'll be having in the stack? What operations we do in stack? Operations in a stack. What is stack overflow? What is stack overflow? Stack overflow. What is stack overflow? What is stack overflow? Okay, stack overflow is nothing but, see, whenever stack overflow is nothing but whenever we are first, whenever you try to insert any element into the stack, we are going to check whether the stack is full or empty. Okay, we are going to check whether the stack is full or empty. If the stack is full, okay, I'm repeating, if the stack is full and we are trying to insert or add an element into the stack, adding an element in the stack is called as pushing. We are trying to push an element into the stack, then the condition we are going to get will be stack overflow, right? And if there are no elements in the stack, right, there are no elements in the stack and we are trying to delete the element from the stack, okay, and we are trying to delete the element from the stack, then we have a condition called as stack underflow, right? Deleting is nothing but popping an element from the stack. Okay, the operation of delete is nothing but popping in pop. That operation we call as pop operation in stack. Yes. So now we see here operations. Push element is used to insert an element at one end of the stack called top. Remove is to remove an element if it is not empty, right? If it is not empty, otherwise what happens? We get a stack or underflow condition, right? Then peak returns the element. Sorry, return the return the element at the top of the stack without removing it. Okay, if it is not empty, then only. Then size, return the number of elements in the stack is empty. Okay, it is going to return true if the stack is empty, otherwise returns false. Is full, return true if the stack is full, otherwise it will return false. Is this clear, everyone? Clear about the stack? Clear about the stack? Yes or no? I'll pick Varshita, Anil Kumar, Amarnath. I want reply from you people. Shreya, Shreya, Amarnath, are you following? Yes or no? Yes, you are able to follow? Okay. Are you able to follow? Yes. Why? Okay, clear, clear, good. Okay, right. Then then next we are having is Q. So what is Q? What is Q? Q means, see, before going to Q, I want applications of stack. What are the applications of stack we have? Applications of stack. I want applications of the stack. Yes, what are the applications we have for a stack? Applications of stack. What are the different applications of a stack? General example also you can tell. Real time example or computer science related example. What applications we have for a stack? General examples also. The people studied all these things, right? Used in function calls, history of web pages, memory management still. Okay, expression conversions. Any other things like prefix and postfix expressions, evaluating expressions, good still, still anything. Still any other thing, any other examples apart from this? Backtracking still. Okay. See, general examples you can take as applications. Towers of Hanoi, did you remember? Does it comes in the stack? Towers of Hanoi. Towers of Hanoi. Yes or no? I want. Towers of Hanoi. Okay. So the next thing is we are having a queue, right? You chat box. Okay. Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen? Yes. Okay. Right. The next thing we are going to start is queue. Tell me an example of queue. Tell me an example of queue. Example of queue. Application of queue. Meaning of example. Application of queue. Example of queue. What's the principle used in queue? First of all, what's the principle used in a queue? Printers in real time. Good. Next. Okay, first in, first out. First in, first out is a principle we follow under the queue here, right? So, in a queue, we are going to have, we can perform insertions from both the end as well as deletions from the both the end. So, from which end you can insert, that end is called what? What is called rear end and front end? What is called rear end and front end? Rear end and front end. Right, rear end is nothing but from where you're going to insert, right, the pointer variable which you, right, like tail and head. Okay, it is like tail and head, front end and deleting. Okay, front for deleting and rear is for inserting. Good, good. Okay, so in the same way here, queue contains elements of the same type arranged in sequential order and the place both ends. Okay, operations takes place at both ends. Insertion is done at the end and deletion is done at the other end. Okay, so the operations which we do on a QR, NQ and DQ. Okay, operations which we do on a QR, NQ and DQ. Okay, NQ, insert an element at the end of a queue. DQ means remove and return the first element of the queue. Okay, return and remove and return the first element of the queue. If again, whenever it comes to removing, if the queue is not empty, the condition specifies note will be if the queue is not empty. Even the same case with the queue also, with the stack also. And peak. That peak means again it returns the element of the queue without removing it. Then size means it returns the size of the element. Then is empty means it checks whether the queue is empty. otherwise it will return false. Okay, if it is empty, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. If is full means if the queue is full, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Okay, so we have seen how many ADTs now. Okay, how many ADTs? One is list, stack, and queue. Okay, then next one we are having is, what do you mean by information hiding, encapsulation? Then okay, polymorphism. What do you mean by information hiding? Abstraction, right? Where we have seen in abstraction, whenever we have any important data, right? We don't want that particular data to be used by any other person. Like for example, we wanted to have the bank balance. Okay, we want to check the balance of a account. That should not be exposed to everyone. Yes or no? And even the password, right? That should not be exposed to everyone. So such things we are going to hide it. Such things we are going to hide it. So that is nothing but information hiding. So generally we use, for information hiding we use the access specifier. Which access specifier we use for information hiding? For hiding the information, which access specifier do we use? Access specifiers we use. Which access specifier we are going to use? Okay, good, Anusha. For quick reply, Anusha. Okay. Chat box is enabled only, ma. Everybody can see chat box, right? Yes. Chat box is not enabled. You can't see chat box. One second. Can you see now? Can you see the chat box now? But how few people are able to give reply to me? I'm getting a response from most of the people. One second. See the chat box? Yes. Okay, ma. Okay, so with this we have completed our unit 2 revision. Okay, we have completed our unit 2 revision. Right, if you have any doubts, you can you go through this. We will share the notes also. Right. Right. We have completed our unit 2 with this discussion. Okay, we'll see tomorrow what we have to do. We will have some more discussions on this. Okay, we will include few more concepts on the same thing.